My name is Roman. I'm a photographer from the UK, and at the moment I am just traveling around a bit and taking photos of anything interesting that I see. In terms of seriously, I started in 2018, but semi-seriously was before that. I've always had cameras. I think my first camera was an old Sony 3-megapixel thing when I was 12, right? But I've always had cameras growing up, even if I wasn't into photography. But it wasn't until I started to travel for my job at the time, in my early to mid-20s, where I would travel to really cool parts of the world, and I figured, let me just take photos. And what I found is I really enjoyed the process of shooting, to the point where we'll come back from a day out with my job, and I had my little Sony a6000 and the first generation iPad Pro. And I would go straight back to the hotel, plug it in, and start editing on Snapseed back then. And I remember doing that. But then I didn't start seriously until around 2018. So all my social media accounts were created on the 1st of January 2018. The reason I started it seriously is because I changed my jobs at the time. I went from traveling to office-based, and I started to become a bit bored. So because I had the cameras already, I thought, let me just go walk around London, take photos, started to enjoy it, and then kind of, one thing led to another. That was just photography. YouTube didn't come in until about close to 2020, end of 2019. So August 2019 is when I actually published my first video. You know what's funny is I don't really remember exactly why I started. So one of the reasons I started is because I was doing some freelance photography for like a fitness influencer for Mike. He kept pushing me to do it, and at the time it was so uncomfortable for me to be in front of camera. And I remember thinking, well, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work. It was more a case of, this makes me really uncomfortable, but if I get good at talking to a camera, then there are many other benefits that would bring other than doing YouTube, if that makes sense. So speech, being able to be okay with how you look on photos, the sound of your own voice. So it brings a lot of benefits which are not even related to having a YouTube channel. So it's more about the challenge of doing it and just sharing my journey, and it was another way for me to get my photography out there. So those were the main reasons. But yeah, so not the quietest place in the world, but I've been walking past this place nearly every day, and I think there's a shot here, but I just can't get it. I like the neons of the cafe, the reflections, and also the hard light that's coming through there. And I think if you get the right combination of a yellow taxi, a specific person wearing a specific outfit, I think there is a shot here. I'm yet to get it. I might try my luck now, give myself 10 minutes. I don't know what that was. And see, but we've got someone who's blocking the way now, so. Too busy. The thing is, say if that bus there was white, then that will work better because you'll have the contrast. All right, it's clear now, so I just need one subject. Now this is a very specific technique I'm using. It's called spray and pray. You spray and then you pray, basically. They don't teach you that in art school, do they? Oh, maybe. Yeah. There's a white van, so maybe I can get someone against that van, like a silhouette. Nah, too many, yeah. And this is what I mean, it's one of these things, like, you can have the best skill in the world, but you just have to wait and keep coming back. I mean, I've got about 2 more minutes before we'll move on. Here I would wait, because I know something can happen. But if it's a quieter area, then I'll just remember it. I might take a photo on my phone so I know where it is geographically, and I'll come back. But in a place like this, I think if you give yourself another 5 minutes, you can usually get something.
What's the longest you've ever waited?
Do you know what? Not that much. Probably about, probably about 20 minutes. Because I'll get bored quite quickly. And I mean, I'm staying around the corner, so I can always come back here. All right, so it's clear now. I just need, all right, we might be, come on. Okay, I think 1 is okay. Let me just double check. All right, I think I'm done. I think there might be 1 which is like okay. There's definitely nothing to, white truck just went past, never mind. I'll come back to it another time. If there is 1 which is okay, you'll see it. I would say the first time it became evident that this could be a thing was probably about 2 years into posting every week. And at that point, I started to make around 50% of my day job income. Things were going up and growing. And then I thought, well, if I cut back on my costs, move back into my parents, whatever, I can survive on 50% of my income. And then I can put all my time and effort into YouTube. So that was around 2.5 years in, that's when I started to entertain the idea. If I wasn't doing photography, I mean, my background's automotive and project management and vehicle testing. I could probably see myself going back into vehicle testing if it wasn't for photography, because at least you can travel, see the world, drive cars. I honestly don't know. At this point, it's hard for me to see myself doing anything else. I would suspect it would always involve an element of travel, and it would always involve an element of not being in a 9-to-5 office environment. Initially, when I started leaning more towards cities and streets, it wasn't by choice, it was because all I had was London. I lived within a 30-minute commute into London, and it was either that or nothing else. Because in the UK, to get into proper nature and landscapes, you have to drive quite far if you're based in the south. And because London was so accessible, it's just what I started to shoot. I found myself, because my style and my photographic eye developed around cities, I just started to shoot cities because it's kind of what I knew. And it's only in the last maybe year or so that I've started to yearn more for landscapes and for nature. And this current phase of my life is very much backpacking from city to city to city. But my next phase will be buy a car and then drive and cover small villages, small towns and nature. So I will not always shoot cities. It's only something I'm doing right now because I'm in a position in life to kind of do that, if that makes sense. So when I get to a new place, so the first 4 days in New York, I was using a zoom, so 24-70. And the reason I do that is because A, I just want to get as much as I can because I feel like I'm making a good start. But also, I don't want to impose a focal length on a particular place. Because, some places, they're great at 28mm, other places are better at 80mm. And you'll only get a gist of that once you've used the zoom and you're like, actually, this is a 50mm place. But after a while, after 3-4 days of walking around with a zoom, even though the zoom that I've got is very small, I just want like a little prime that I don't have to think about. Because sometimes, this is a 40 megapixel camera, so I can always crop in. But this is a 40mm, and I think for New York, 40mm is perfect. Sure, there are times when I want to go wider and tighter, but generally speaking, actually, so far my favorite shots from this place were at around about 40mm. So another good thing that you could do is you can shoot on the zoom for the first few days, and when you look through your photos, just see where most of your shots sit. And then that will give you a good indication of potentially what primes to take. From a photography perspective, I would say Japan is #1. And it's because you can get so much under one roof. You've got Tokyo, which is crazy, but then you can go to sleepy towns, you can go to old abandoned towns, into nature, etc. So if you want to get the most sort of bang for your buck photography-wise, I would say Japan is at the top. From another perspective, I had a great time in Istanbul because it was the first proper trip that me, Faisal and Aaron did. And it was literally a month after I got rid of my apartment, got rid of my car, packed a bag and went. So that will always have a particular memory for me. Slovenia, Ljubljana, I spent 3 weeks in Slovenia, and that was my favorite place in terms of just being somewhere. The people, the quietness of it. So I would say Japan, Istanbul and Slovenia are kind of the ones that stick out the most to me in terms of photography, memories, all that kind of stuff. I would say it's the one place where you will never get the same thing happen twice and where you'll never get the same character. In terms of just sitting down and watching life and watching people, this is probably the best place in the world for that. Japan, I would still prefer to photograph Tokyo than New York. But in Tokyo, everything is, it's repeatable. Not repeatable, but people are very similar. Yeah. Whereas here, you'll never get to similar types of people. And you can get such a huge spectrum of characters and scenarios that you can walk the same street every day and you'll have a completely different experience. So just for people watching and just for watching life, I would say this is one of the top places for it. So out of all the places I want to visit, I would say Iceland at the moment is sitting close to the top, and I want to do bigger road trips, especially around those kinds of places. So Iceland, maybe Faroe Islands, maybe Canary Islands. Another thing I would love to do is more hiking or bike-packing style photography trips. So for instance, the place I think it starts in Portugal, goes through Spain, the Camino de Santiago, it's called. It's a long hike. It's like a 100-mile plus hike. It'll take you 3-4 weeks to do, but you walk through different villages. So this is like a 3-week almost expedition, so to speak. That's the kind of stuff I want to do in the future. I don't know what the fuck I'm taking a photo of, the back of a truck. And I don't think I'll do anything with this. But sometimes, like these kinds of places, you could just get, so you know, like with all my shots, I go for, let's say, 1 or 2 kind of, I don't want to say banger, I want to slap myself every time I say the word banger, but you have like 1 or 2 shots which are your premium 5-star kind of shots, but also I want to take photos like this because
supporting cast.
Yeah, but even just for me, for my own library later, because I'll be like, oh, I remember this particular walk, nearly got run over by 10 trucks and breathed in 10 kilos of pollution. Yeah. But I don't know, I know it could just be me. I think sometimes it's nice to have some cliche shots and nothing wrong with them, but I try not to think before taking a photo. I just go on instinct. I actually need to make a video about this. I try to photograph instinctively rather than analytically, because with a digital camera you can deal with it later. If it's not good, you can delete it. And what I find, if I get too technical, or if I think too much about, oh, is this interesting, or is there a story, or is this, you just end up not, oh, poor guy, so all his stuff's just falling out, oh, bless him. Anyway, and so now if I just see something, if for whatever reason I think, oh, let me look at that, I'll take a shot. And sometimes, most of the time, it's rubbish. But sometimes you might just get something interesting. Just the act of taking photos for me is fun. Like, I would happily take photos of this blue wall for the next day. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I just enjoy taking photos. And if I delete all of them at the end, I don't care, it's just fun. So there's these yellow trucks here. I don't really know if I can do anything with that, but let me try not to get run over. You know what, I actually quite like this. I'm using, God, it's really bright. So I'm using this half of this truck to just clean up this side of the frame and add some depth. And then I'm having those yellow trucks all lined up. And then that contrasts with the blue sky and the blue buildings. And because, again, I'm not from New York, so to me, seeing these yellow DHL trucks is interesting. It's a bit like if someone goes to London and sees black cabs or red buses. To a New Yorker, they're probably thinking, what are you doing? But that's the beauty of travel, is that you see something interesting in the mundane. So it's kind of this kind of composition I'm going for, something like this, like that. Focusing on this truck, shooting at f/5.6, so there's a bit of depth of field, but not too much to throw things off. Again, is it going to win an award? No, but when it's in a part of a bigger photo album from this trip, I'll be really glad I took it. Move back. No. This is the joys of not having a zoom lens. Oh, there's a bird. Look at that. All right. I know many other people also have a style, but I can't quantify my style because it changes so much. My style does shift a bit depending on where I am and depending on the light, on the environment, and many things. And I also don't think you ever arrive at your style because the moment you have a particular look, in a year's time that might be different. If I look at some of my best photos over the last 3-4 years, yes, they have some things in common, but they also have so many differences. I think if you plan to be a wedding photographer, portrait photographer, commercial, anything where a client is picking you for a job, you need to have a consistent style and a consistent look. But if you're doing it for yourself or for the art of photography, I don't think you should strive for a style. You should strive to become a better photographer, and your style is something that runs in the background and it will change as you grow. So for a good example is with Tokyo, my style was a lot more like cinematic, filmic. I started using grain. I started sort of just like crushing the whites a little bit so the images were more muted. I would say it's more the editing style rather than what I shoot, because I still go for similar subjects and similar things. But again, it depends. Like in Tokyo, I was going for a lot of taxis, classic cars, because there's a lot of that. In other parts of the world, I'll go for something else. When I'm in the Mediterranean, sort of Spain, those places, I go for colors, for buildings, for architecture, because it's very beautiful. So it does depend on where I am, but 100% it changes, because you can't, and this is maybe, I don't know if you include it, but what I said in a video, in a segment earlier, that I don't force a focal length on the place in the same way I wouldn't force my particular editing style on a place. There is no structure, and the reason for that is because my number one priority is to have a good time. And if I structure my day, quick story, me, Faisal and Aaron did a shoot for the Abu Dhabi Tourism Board years ago. Our entire day was pretty much planned out for us. 9 a.m. at the door, you hit this spot, this spot, this spot, this spot. By the end of it, I was exhausted, and I remember I was in a car and I was so irritated that we couldn't even get half a day to chill in a coffee shop and relax and just enjoy ourselves being there. It was very much a shoot. In Istanbul, I remember, I think half the trip we spent chilling in coffee shops. But in Istanbul, I walked away with 10 times as many photos, and the quality of the photos were better. So when I structure my day, generally speaking, I want to have a good time and not be rushed. I don't like being rushed, I don't like being in a rush, and if it involves spending 2 hours just sitting here with a coffee watching the world go by before carrying on, then that's part of the process for me. At the end of the day, it's all about enjoying yourself, otherwise what's the point? Of course, there'll be certain things that you can't control, so if I want to shoot sunsets on a ferry like I did yesterday, I have to make sure I'm there. But typically, I would say have 2 spots for the day, one for the morning, one for the evening. So today, for instance, in the morning we did Midtown, in the afternoon we'll do downtown. That's as far as planning goes, unless there's a specific thing for it. But generally, when you're traveling, you have to be very fluid to change your plans, because today the light is wonderful. Tomorrow, if it's cloudy and raining, okay, it's an editing day. It's a museums day. It depends on where I am. In most cases, I like sunny days. That's not just because it's my style, I like to shoot sunny days, but it's just nice to be out. However, other places like in Tokyo, shooting at night was actually very fun because of all the lights. But would I shoot at night in New York? Probably not, because you don't have the same, maybe Times Square. But in other places like here in New York or in London, I wouldn't really shoot at night that much because I don't really want to. In other places, shooting in the rain is fun, but generally speaking, I like sunny days from an aesthetic and just a being out perspective. To answer those 2 questions, I'll try and put them together into one. And with photography, I usually split it into 2 types of images. The first one is a visual first image, and these are photos which don't really need a story, they're just pleasing to look at. They look really nice, they can go on the wall, they can look nice in a little coffee table book, and it's sort of things, it's just a pleasure to look at. With those images, I look for compositions, colors, negative space, and some of those photos that when you look at them, you just don't know why you like it, but you really like it. And I love those images, and I try and actually do more of them at the moment. The second type of image is more of a storytelling image. When I look at those photos, what separates good from great is there has to be some kind of an emotion that evoked from looking at the photo. There's some photos that I would look at and I immediately think to a memory I've had. Or I look at a particular photo from a road trip and I immediately think, oh God, I can't wait to go for it on the trip. I like that. Also, photos that don't reveal everything and make you ask questions when you look at them. And you think, oh, why is that happening like that? Or what does that mean? Or why is that person doing this? Or what's going on here? You make the viewer ask questions and having some kind of an emotional reaction to the photo. So I don't get inspired by other photographers at all. I respect them. I will sit down, I will look for their zine, but I will not buy a zine or a book to get inspiration. I'll buy it to support that particular photographer because I either know them or I really like their work. And the reason for it is simply because for me, photography is a means to document my travels and my life. I don't travel to New York to shoot. I travel to New York because I want to experience New York, I want to see it, I want to walk around, and I'll collect some memories with this camera. So for me, inspiration comes from travel, from exploring, and from just being out and about. If I'm ever down on inspiration, I'll just go for a walk somewhere. I don't need books, I don't need movies. Like, Jesus. Like, of course, I can look at a particular photo with a particular color grade and think, well, that's a nice color grade. But it's more from a technical perspective where I think, oh, that's a good composition, I like that. That's a good color grade, that's a good I like the layering in this image. I don't get inspired by other photographers. Are you filming me limping? I got some new shoes. These are Hockers.
Recommended by who?
Faisal. To be fair, in his defense, right, I bought the shoes and then the following 2 days I've covered about 40 miles of walking. And here's a top tip. If you buy new shoes, wear them in before walking 40 miles, which is about 55 kilometers-ish for everyone back at home. Yeah, wear your shoes in. Otherwise, you'll end up with massive blisters everywhere. I'm not blaming the shoes because I think they're fine, but I'm just blaming, I don't know, I've just got myself to blame, to be honest. Always have your camera with you. Some of my best photos have come when I was waiting for my missus to do her shopping and I was outside just waiting. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Just have a look. Some of the best shots have happened that way. I was out with my mum doing something. I was out with my mates on a hike. I always carry this. If I go to the gym, I'll put this in my gym bag. One of my favorite photos from Tokyo was literally outside of my gym. When you always have this with you, you're always shooting. When you're not carrying your camera with you, you think, okay, I'm gonna photograph today. And you spend the whole day out. But as you know, you're focusing for the first 3 hours. You can't focus for the entire day. By hour 4, you're drifting, you think you're daydreaming. By always having the camera with you, you're always in a position to get a good shot and you're always shooting. So if you're working a day job in the city, maybe jump out one stop before and walk the last mile. At lunchtime, if you're going to pick up a sandwich from the shop, just have your camera with you. Get a little Ricoh, use your phone, use like this little pancake lens that I've got here. Always have a camera with you. In most cases, what separates successful photographers from not successful photographers isn't talent. It's how many hours they've put in. And even when I had a job, every time I would leave my house, I'll have a camera with me. So the first photo for me, it's mostly from a visual perspective. So what it was is it was in Shibuya Sky, which is the viewpoint. Right. And when it's really windy, the outdoor bit gets closed. So everyone goes downstairs into the indoor bit. You've got the glass, which is a 2-pane glass, therefore there's a lot of reflection. And behind the glass is a display which shows different animations, just, you know. And I was shooting at 135mm because I was outside. And that's the only lens I had with me. And I thought, how am I gonna shoot through here because there's reflections everywhere? And I remember I was standing there and I was looking at the glass thinking, all these fucking reflections everywhere. I can't get a clean shot of the cityscape. And I thought, well, I might as well work with the reflections. And the display behind me had these giant orange circles going past. I thought, what if I can get the circle, Tokyo Tower, and the silhouette through the circle? So that was very much planned and kind of executed. It took me about 20 minutes to get that. I think it was like 100, 200 frames. It's one of those photos I've always been striving to get, where there is a famous landmark, but there's also some great visuals to it, abstraction to it as well. And it has the elements of how on earth was that taken, what is it, where is it? You could tell it's Tokyo because of Tokyo Tower, but I had so many questions from people asking how, what, when. And it's one of these shots that when I saw it on the wall in the exhibition in Shibuya, and I was like, man, that's one of the only probably 3 or 4 photos that I'm genuinely like, fuck, I took that. I'm happy with that. That is great. Slovenia one is the second one. That was Lake Bled in the actual little island in the church. We climbed up. That's more of not the photo, but just the memory. And it was just it was a trip with my girlfriend. Slovenia is one of my favorite places on earth. It was just such a chilled out, relaxed day. We took a boat, we rowed a boat, climbed up to this church, we just sat down for a while, watched the world go by. You're surrounded by the Alps. It was one of those moments where we always talk about it, we always remember it. And I remember seeing a gap through the trees and the boats were all going back. And I thought, let me see if I can get something, and I got this great shot. It's more the memories than the photo itself, even though I think the photo itself is quite strong. And whenever I look at that, it just takes me back to that moment. And the last one is more of a lesson because it's such a simple shot. It was in Rabat in Malta, just the back streets, we're walking around, and there was this white house with this stereotypical blue window and a cat sitting there. It's not going to win any awards, but there's something I love about simple, aesthetic, visual photography. You don't need a story, you don't need a crazy elaborate layering system and compositions and light. Sometimes something simple and relatable like that is strong enough in my opinion. And that's why I love that shot. It's a reminder that you don't need anything crazy. And again, when I look at that photo, I was with my mum and with my girlfriend. We were on a day trip out of Valletta into Rabat. And it was such a nice day. We were just walking around, 30 degrees was beautiful. And that photo for me kind of cements that.